Good afternoon. Well, that's going to be a tough act to follow, especially after all the expertise in part one as well. My name is Josepha Bertoloni, and I'm a research assistant with Sustainable Cultural Futures at King's College London, and it is truly an honor to be in this room with so many amazing minds and to have the honor to speak with you about the research that we've been doing. I also want to give my sincere gratitude to the incredible colleagues here at Aux Shisha University and all their kindness and support and amazing hospitality. So with that, we will be discussing the findings from the third report we conducted within Theme 3, which is entitled Revaluing Human Cultural Labor in the Time of AI. And we're just going to touch on kind of the key findings and main takeaways. And before I launch in, I kind of just want to give a bit of a preface that of the three reports that we conducted on AI, this one was by far the most complex and complicated. It unearthed many potential lines of inquiry, but didn't yield definitive answers. So our hope today is more to introduce the broad brushstroke themes we found, not so that we can present hard facts, yet rather to facilitate further questions and deeper conversations regarding the distinct value of human cultural labor in the time of AI. As with reports 2 and 3, this research was informed by creative precarity, which we define as the increasing uncertainty in terms of cultural workers' creative roles, rights, and identity, and audiences' perception of their creativity and labor. Therefore, a critical defining factor of artistic production in the time of AI may be how audiences respond to synthetic content and to the use of generative mediums within artistic practice. Before we jump in, just a few notes on our research scope. Our lit review, because this is such an emergent field of research, there are very few publications historically that look at AI versus human evaluations in art. We really focused on studies that were AI versus human evaluations, which were image-based, and were aesthetic response studies from 2015 and onward. This was so that we could take into account significant advancements in the field of AI, such as GANs and diffusion models. And we also chose image-based studies so that all findings related to a common medium, hoping that findings could be better correlated. We also looked at relevant articles from the fields of psychology, aesthetics, neuroaesthetics, as well as industry reports and journalism and media coverage with a focus on AI discourse and themes. I'd also like to take a moment to explain the nature of these AI versus human evaluation studies, as they are quite complex and can easily get confusing, which was something that we experienced firsthand. But they can mainly be broken down into two types of studies. In categorization studies, participants are asked to determine and assign either human or AI authorship to images. In this case, researchers want to know how accurately can participants determine authorship? What visual cues are leaned on in the determination process? What potential role does categorization play in our experience of works? And what else can categorization tell us? In pre-labeled studies, researchers label works as either human or AI authored. This label may or may not correlate to the true origin of the work. For example, an AI image is labeled as human-made. In this case, researchers most likely want to know, what is the nature of our response to? Is our response a result of our engagement with the label, or is it a result of our engagement with the true human or AI origin of a work? Or is it some combination of the two? And what else can our response in relation to a label tell us? It has already been noted how synthetic content pollutes our information and culture ecosystems, with both the public and experts easily fooled by generative AI outputs. I'm pretty sure that everyone in this room is familiar with the image on the left. This image went viral last year, and it's a generative image of Pope Francis wearing a Balenciaga puffer jacket. It went viral and fooled quite a lot of people on social media. I'm curious if anyone is familiar with the image on the right, because this one is quite fantastic. So this image won the Sony World Photography Award. It fooled experts on a panel and was awarded the prize for best photograph, even though this is not a photograph at all. And unfortunately, we don't have time to unpack the kind of meaning in that, but it's something to think of about how AI can be acted as a tool for medium. Accordingly, Categorization studies appear to mirror real-world observations, with multiple papers noting our difficulty in identifying and assigning authorship to AI. On the opposite side, we appear to exhibit a higher accuracy in categorizing human-made art. However, this phenomenon is not fully understood, and there are different theories surrounding this outcome. Furthermore, the genre or style of works may also factor into categorization tasks. We might associate abstract images with AI authorship, according to one research, or representational works may be associated with human authorship, according to another one. As AI versus human evaluation studies also underscore how deeply complex our aesthetic response is, with this dynamic also extending to AI art. One outcome is the varied and sometimes divergent nature of our response to works, which can be broken down into three camps. So we have conflicted beliefs and divergent responses, the role of attribution or a label, and possibly the power of provenance within our experience of works. Research suggests that we hold conflicted beliefs about AI art, and that there are differences in aesthetic response, especially when comparing AI and human art. Despite participants liking AI art more, they still preferred works they believed to be human-made. Despite them professing positive beliefs about AI, they looked longer at works that they later categorized as human than works that they later categorized as AI, signaling a potential implicit bias. And despite people holding negative beliefs about AI and its ability to create art, they still gave positive aesthetic evaluations to AI-labeled art. Our preference for human-created works has led some researchers to consider the role of attribution or a label in mediating our response to works. And I just want to take a little focus here on this. I really enjoyed this study. In this one, all of the images were made by AI. They all had a common creative method and were all AI generated. Half were labeled AI made and half were labeled human made. Despite all images being AI generated, participants preferred so-called human-created works more. This was especially the case for an evaluation of deeper meaning, i.e. profundity. The critical difference in aesthetic responses in this case was the label itself. Some authors note that interaction with human-labeled art within the context of viewing AI-labeled works comparatively increases perceptions of human creativity. One study that used two human-created works, but labeled one as AI-made, found that participants reported more awe and creativity for the human-created work rather than the supposed AI-generated one, even though they were both human-created. Some authors suggest that a label of AI does not itself create negative perceptions, yet rather acts as a vehicle through which pre-existing negative biases against AI are accessed and then impact our response. Furthermore, it is also possible that the true human origin of works may also be at play, with differences in aesthetic response being connected to the provenance of human-authored works. Before I jump in, I just want to explain what provenance means within the context of these studies. So the original image was created either by a human or by an AI. It may have been labeled true to its origin or opposite to it. So for example, a human painting is labeled AI. These studies observe our response to works in relation to their origin and their label. Example, the AI-labeled human origin painting performs higher in evaluation tasks, implying that the provenance of works may be relevant in audience response. As such, studies have noted how AI-generated paintings were less well evaluated in terms of liking, beauty, novelty, and meaning than paintings made by humans. Works made by humans elicited stronger emotions and deeper understandings of the artist's intended emotions, regardless of the label used, which suggests that although labeling may impact our response to art, the true human origin of works may also be critical to our experience of art. Some researchers propose that cognitive biases, such as anti-AI bias or AI aversion, and anthropocentric beliefs or human preferentialism, may be underpinning research findings. For example, Some studies correlated anti-AI bias or negative beliefs about AI with lower evaluations of AI art. Other studies show variable correlations, an implicit bias against AI despite professing positive evaluations, anti-AI bias positively impacting our perception of human creativity. Therefore, some propose that anti-AI bias and anthropocentrism are interrelated or possibly interchangeable. One study found that anthropocentric beliefs resulted in lower evaluations of AI art, while one study revealed that when a group of participants viewed robots with humanoid characteristics and behaviors, such as a robotic arm drawing and a camera head looking, they reported higher aesthetic evaluations than those who did not view the anthropomorphic robots. Given our marked preference for human-created works and the potential role of biases, how then is humanness articulated within the context of generative AI? There appear to be certain and potentially interrelated characteristics, specifically emotion, embodiment, effort, and intentionality, through which humanness is articulated in evaluation studies. Studies appear to suggest correlations between human authorship and emotional connection to works. One study found a connection between empathy and a better ability to discern the authorship of works. However, we should note that empathy was not enough for participants to perform accurately enough on categorization tasks. In fact, this study found that the participants performed so badly on categorization tasks that they did not analyze the data any further. And furthermore, another found that works that were human created rather than simply labeled as human elicited not only greater emotions, but also an understanding of intended emotions communicated between artist and viewer. Another study found that a label of human alone was enough for participants to report a higher emotional response to works, even though all works were AI generated. Therefore, viewer empathy, true human origin, and perceived human authorship of works may all be at play in defining humanness through emotion in the time of AI. And I just love this painting by Mark Rothko. I mean, it's so simple, but it has such an emotional depth to it. So I just wanted to kind of treat you guys to that. Another area of human articulation appears to be the role of embodiment. And before I launch into this case study, I just want to show you guys a clip from 5 Robots Named Paul, which is a performance art installation by the artist Patrick Tressé. This same installation was used in Chamberlain et al.'s, or similar one. It's now 6 robots, but the 5 robots were used by Chamberlain. This installation was used by Chamberlain et al.'s study, which aimed to measure the role of embodiment in our aesthetic experience. I do recommend watching the entirety of it. It is very fascinating. And moving on. Chamberlain and her colleagues note how watching the robots draw gave observers an insight into the complex creation process and the physical constraints of the system. Additionally, aesthetic response to robotic art were moderated by how anthropomorphic the robotic agent appears to the observer. They later concluded how aesthetic responses to artworks are now known to be affected by the embodiment of the system. Furthermore, in the AI or human categorization task of this study, participants leaned on visual clues to assign human authorship to abstract images, wherein it appeared that participants drew upon surface properties of the artworks, like visible brushstrokes and irregular, imperfect lines to spot man-made qualities. Furthermore, researchers have already noted the potential relevance of an effort heuristic within aesthetic experience. That is, the greater the perceived effort invested by the artist, the better they were assumed to be. Such an effort heuristic appears to be manifesting in AI versus human evaluations. One study found that higher perceived effort led to higher liking and beauty when the label was human created, more than when it was AI created. While some hypothesize that human labeled works are rated higher because we believe that human activities are more tiring or time consuming and valuable than AI ones. Before the emergence of generative AI, aesthetic response studies discussed how works, which were deliberately and carefully created, were more likely to qualify as art. This research also discussed the potential role of the artist's intention, that is, whether he or she wanted to create a work of art and how much deliberation went into this in observers' evaluation of works. Therefore, the study that used all AI images notes how a label of human acts as a vessel for elaborative and communicative engagement. Another study found a correlation between the true human origin of works and emotional intentionality, wherein participants picked up the intended emotions of human authors, regardless of label used. Adjacently, another study that found that AI-generated works were rated as less meaningful than human-created ones. Such findings combined might suggest that an artist's intentions, the meaning of works, and the communication of these qualities may be at play in aesthetic experience. But finally, we should note that our difficulty in discerning between AI and human-created works still remains. Thus, such findings, including humanness, remain fully undecided. As a final note, it is important that we mention that there are research limitations. These studies have their limitations, and they differed in terms of methods and materials and more. So we should not overreach in our understandings of correlations. Furthermore, as cultural scholars, we are not experimental psychologists, and nor are we neuroaesthetic scientists. Thus, there were our own limitations in understanding and interpreting research findings. It's also possible that we may hold biases of our own. We should also note how some studies hypothesize that through more positive or anthropomorphized experiences with AI, anti-AI bias may diminish over time. So there are societal and behavioral implications we cannot fully take into account. As such, we also draw attention to the critical need for deeper transdisciplinary research into audience responses to human-made and AI-made cultural expressions. We must examine how a schema of emotion, embodiment, effort, intentionality, and other characteristics may influence and interact with the human creative process, cultural labor, and audiences' perception of and response to such labor. We also call for the urgent implementation of AI watermarking and synthetic content labeling. This is not only so that audiences can distinguish between synthetic and human content, but also to allow the public the opportunity to revalue human cultural labor, potentially even heightening the experience of human-created works. Such labeling may act as a comparative lens through which the humanness of works can be more readily communicated and revalued in the time of AI. So I would like to ask this room full of experts, creatives, artists, researchers, for their thoughts and opinions. Will a renewed interest in and appreciation for human cultural labor unfold in the generative era? Or will the distinct human value of works slowly diminish through positive or anthropomorphic exposure to AI? Or will AI sharpen human preferentialism?
Thank you very much.